Journalist Matt Reichbach of the NM Political Report wrote an article that came out in the middle of this month about the, quote, work in progress of diversifying New Mexico's economy to make it less dependent on oil and gas, certainly. Now, diversify has been a rallying cry in the state for years, and as Mr. Reichbach put it, we know that is a truth. Also, mid-month, media outlets reported that ExxonMobil released a study that estimates the company's activities here will provide $64 billion in economic benefit for New Mexico over the next 40 years. And Rachel, that kind of money anticipated from the oil and gas industry, that's a big, eye-catching number. It begs a certain kind of a question. Are we bailing on the oil and gas thing too soon? We like to say we'd like to get away from these folks. I don't know what other kind of industries could make up that kind of gap if we ever walked away from these people, which is not going to happen. You know what I mean? But what's your sense there? Should we just have a different attitude about this?
Yeah, those are good points. So New Mexico has the luck right now of having a good slice of the Permian Basin,
Absolutely.
which is the hottest oil activity in the country, some of the hottest in the world. At the same time, it's the time when your economy is relatively strong is a fantastic time to diversify. You don't want to do it when your state budget is crunched because oil and gas is down.
Right.
It's much harder to do it then.
Right.
So now is a really fantastic time to work on building additional industries for some economic strength so that if oil and gas goes into the tank again, we have more to offset it.
Tom, I got to think you would agree with that. In fact, I think I've heard you say similar at this table in years past. Back when we had the crunch, it was hard to, to get these kind of things going. Where are we now on the economy, and is this the time to strike?
Well, it is. I think it is the time to strike. Whenever the tide comes in, you got to be able to do what you can to diversify and help other boats to kind of benefit from that rising tide. The challenge for the oil and gas industry, I think, is to be able to humanize the message. They have to get beyond, saying, look at for all the things all the money we're bringing to the state, and they have to say, here's how we're involved in your community. Here's how we're helping to solve New Mexico's, crunch from being so dependent upon us. So there's a lot of different things, but overall, I think that the economy as a whole, not because of the oil and gas industry, oil and gas is booming right now. It's huge.
Sure.
But overall economy in New Mexico really has picked up. I mean, we have seen just in our industry, a lot of our clients just really having more of a push, for new projects, new infrastructure, and that's really a good sign.
Wow, interesting. Big announcement this week, Sophie, from Sandia Labs. A lot of people looking to hire. That's a big deal. It's gone so long without that kind of a thing. We're not used to Sandia announcing
actually,
hiring.
I think the difference is that Sandia has made an announcement because it has actually been in a hiring phase for quite some time. As older employees have retired, we have seen that that change where people are retiring again. There is, at least according to what Sandia is saying, there is now a push related to securing our nuclear resources. I'm trying to think of a word for that. And so there's some hiring around that too. What I thought was really interesting in the announcement actually was that they've at least stated that they're really pushing to hire within New Mexico to ensure, for instance, that University of New Mexico students will have a real shot at jobs at Sandia and the ability to stay here in New Mexico. And that's the kind of, we talk about trying to keep our kids home.
That's a little bit different for them, though, being very on the nose about that, about local hires.
Yeah, they're really pushing for local hires and working really collaboratively. So, I don't mean to make it sound like everything is beautiful at Sandia, because but I think that this, that this is a real opportunity for our community, and it's exciting to see it happen.
The Sandia Labs made the announcement over at Economic Forum. And when they made the announcement at Economic Forum, I had the chance to be in the room. They put the slide up and had 1,900 new jobs. And then they talked to it. And everybody in the room is like going, is that a typo? That's because we haven't seen it. There was like, you could hear a pin drop in the room.
I could imagine.
It was like going, wow, 1,900 jobs, and 1,100 of which are new.
Right.
So it is a great opportunity, but we haven't seen that before.
That's right.
And so it was a kind of a funny moment.
That's right. It is. I'm glad you got that in there. It's kind of interesting. Serge, Intel is hiring. The symbolism of that alone is enormous. If you think about how much emotional weight we've put into Intel's success here, and the idea that we thought we might have lost them a few years ago, the idea that maybe just 300, but that's the start of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's something, right? We're still not close to the 7,000 jobs that we used to have here. I think it's great. I think it is it's important to not look to Intel or Sandia Labs or even the oil and gas as this sort of savior to come in and fix everything for us and do these large-scale things. They're splashy, they're exciting, but we have lots of opportunity to invest in lower-income communities, create entrepreneurs, support entrepreneurs. This is a state of small businesses and people working on their own behalf. And the more effort we can put into supporting that sort of stuff is going to be good for community economic development, for the state economic development, and we can take those $64 billion and turn it into a few people getting lots of benefits, or we can turn it into all of us reaping the benefits of that.
Interesting, Rachel, another sign of life out there might be out of Santa Fe. Leah Cantor at the Santa Fe Reporter wrote about women-owned businesses in Santa Fe and how was just noted the percentage of women-owned businesses in Santa Fe far outstrips a lot of communities in our country.
Yeah.
It's really at the top of the chain there. What do you make of that? What do you make of that sign? What does that mean for us in our economic life here?
Yeah, that's definitely, it's an encouraging sign. It was a really interesting story, pointed out both some of the strengths and some of the challenges that women-owned small businesses face. Women-owned small businesses, of course, have statistically a much harder time getting funding. Funding's already pretty tough in New Mexico, it can be. But at the same time, one thing that I have really observed is that New Mexico has such a strong community of women business leaders, and they really support each other. They have each other's back. I've heard women entrepreneurs say that when they were going through a tough time with their business or struggling to find funding, their peers really helped them, keep going and keep chugging.
I love that. Tom, talk about filling in the gap. We're talking about oil and gas last time I was with you, but there's other things going on out there, namely hemp is on the table in New Mexico now. After many years and many people screaming about this opportunity, it's finally here. The governor signed the bill to make that happen. What's your sense of the opportunity here with hemp?
It's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Everything related to hemp and CBD for that from that perspective
Right.
is very hot right now. And when you look at the crops of growing hemp in New Mexico, it uses 10% of the water use that green chilies and red chilies use. And so it's an opportunity for the state to really cash in on what right now is a boom crop. Now, I don't know. I'm not an extension agent, so I don't know what it does to the soil or anything like that. But just from a water consumption perspective, that's good news because it shows better conservation.
It is not unusual over the years that farmers will switch crops if it turns out something is better, down the road. Even if you did something for 20 years. You know what I mean? Competition, things change, and
you have to be able to rotate the crops appropriately.
That's right.
Onions is a great complement to green chili.
Yeah.
And the chili industry. I'm not suggesting that the chili industry go away. We need our red and green. I mean, it's what the state is known for. That's okay. So
that's not going away. That's right.
But hey,
I'm not eating that Colorado stuff.
Right.
No. Pick up, if you would, Sophie, on the idea of women-owned businesses. I want to get back to that Rachel had started. But here in Albuquerque, would you agree? I think Rachel's hit something about that idea that women can band together, even in Albuquerque.
I think women can band together because women have to band together. I mean, that's one of the tough things is that women-owned businesses, while women have owned businesses for time immemorial, that they don't tend to have access to the same resources. And in some cases, I think in many cases, it may be that women have to start their own businesses because other opportunities may not have been available to them. You hope that's changing.
That's right.
But it is changing slowly.
That's right. There are associations in Santa Fe that were mentioned in that article I mentioned, but we have those here as well in Albuquerque. When it comes to tech, when it comes to all other types of
exactly right.
things, absolutely.
That's exactly right.
Serge, in your mind, what is the next big thing for New Mexico? As long as we're talking about the economy, is it aerospace? Is it spaceport? I mean, what is going to give us something that could bring in money in big, huge hunks to really kind of, as Rachel mentioned, make hay while the getting's good at this point?
Well, I have no idea. Right? I mean,
that's fair.
I'm deeply skeptical of this idea of something coming in and getting huge chunks. I really think it is a mistake to rely on that and hope. Sure, it'd be great if something happened like that, but to say that's not going to happen. It has not happened yet in New Mexico. We should not be expecting that to happen, and therefore we should be building these, the businesses that we've been talking about, coming up with new things that we can do well, and understand New Mexico is always going to be its own, weird little place that we all love, but it's not going to, Again, I would love it if someone did show up and shower us with billions of dollars and millions and hundreds and thousands of jobs.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen, and I think we don't need it to happen for New Mexico to thrive if
yeah.
we capitalize on what we do have.
Rachel, in just about 30 seconds, is that an old, not Serge is doing this, but is that an old way of thinking that, we'll just bring these people in that can hire 300 to 500 at a time, if not more? Our way is really smaller than that, isn't it? Yeah.
There's no one white knight.
Right.
It's not going to happen. Remember Tesla? That was going to save
yeah,
us. I mean,
yeah,
that's not how it's going to go.
Facebook, yeah.
That's
But
right.
we're seeing some incremental things. We put together a look at all of the aerospace businesses that have been hiring in New Mexico. It was astonishing when you put it all together. So there are some sectors where there's enough of that incremental growth, maybe, that it could get us to where we need to go ultimately.
Good point there. That's all the time we have on that one. On the economy